Hi, it's Sanjay, and I've got an important announcement to make. We've just launched a brand new workshop for sketching. Now, sketching is an important aspect of design entrance exams. It helps you communicate your ideas, it helps you represent your solutions properly in the exam, and it helps you also to show your skills in the exam. Now, it is going to be a 15-day intensive workshop where you will have live sessions every alternate day, followed by assignments for practice and exercises to develop good sketching habits. Now, we will share techniques that helped our students to secure single digit ranks, even Manya, for that matter, who went on to top the UCEED exam, and who you're going to listen to in a few moments. So, if you want to learn those techniques and the basics or the fundamentals of sketching, then register for the workshop using the link in the description below. All right, now on with the episode.
I wouldn't say I was very good at drawing, definitely not, but I was like undermining myself. I was not confident enough, so I was even scared to just start the composition, because I was like, I will make some sort of mistake and then sab kharab ho jayega. That is something that I learned.
Welcome to Detox, the design podcast. Manya Wahi here with me today, and I'm actually super excited. She's one of my students who went on to become an All India rank 1 in UCEED exam, and I'm going to have a discussion with you today, a very candid one, and I want you to be all natural and be yourself today, because this is not a mentor-student kind of a discussion today. Yeah. How are you doing, Manya?
I'm doing good.
Doing good?
As well as I can.
So कैसा लगा है? कैसा लग रहा है? मतलब All India rank 1, and how does it feel?
So when I found out, I was just completely shocked. I think for a few days I just didn't believe कि ये हुआ है. Everybody was celebrating and I just was really shocked about it for a long time. It still feels weird that I did this. I don't think I ever imagined I would be able to get All India rank 1. I was hoping that I'd get a good rank, but I was never aiming for this. So it was a surprise, definitely.
Right. And I still remember that day you sent me a screenshot and asked me, "Ye All India rank hi hai na?" Yeah. It all paid off. I mean, we've been following, I've been seeing your hard work, and at times you used to disappear in, when you were so caught up with the work at school. Pre-boards chal rahe hain, exams chal rahe hain, then you have to get back to sketching and all of that. So yeah, that phase I've seen, and I've seen the hard work. Well deserved rank 1. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
So let me take you back a little, and कब शुरू हुआ था कि हाँ मुझे डिजाइन करना है, because you have so many options ना, स्कूल से निकलते निकलते you have so many options. So why design, and when did you realize?
So I had decided this quite early on in 11th actually. I knew that I will do this only in 11th, not because I already knew about design. It was basically my parents sat me down to discuss what I want to do after school, and I had no idea. I just knew one thing, that I didn't want to do engineering. And my mother was sort of pushing, not really, but sort of, that I had taken science in 11th and 12th, so she was like, "Acha, engineering karna." But I knew since I was a kid that I don't even want to go down that path. I didn't want to do engineering. So then the question came, what do I want to do? And it was my father who actually said that, there's a thing called design. He didn't know it that well either, but in his office, there were a few UI UX designers. So he knew that it exists. And then so we did a bit of research, and it felt pretty interesting, a lot better than engineering. So I decided to go ahead with it. That's when I decided. It was no big epiphany that I wanted to design because of this reason. I just went along with it, and I'm pretty happy I did. It was a good choice. So yeah. Interesting. Yeah, but I think that research part was there in your journey somewhere or the other. It was your parents who did the research, and they've actually exposed you to this field. And like for me, it was
was nobody. And I was the only one coming to my parents like, okay, मुझे design करना है. And they were like, अच्छा ये क्या होता है? So yeah, research part, I think you did a pretty good job with that when, in 11th you said. So जब ये पता लगा तो क्या किया? What was the next step that you took?
Not a lot of stuff actually. So throughout 11th, I don't think I prepared anything towards the entrance exams. What I did do was, अब चलो decide करा है कि design करना है, तो what exactly do I want to do in design, because it's such a broad thing, right? So then I explored a few of those options, and then I ultimately, it took me a whole year, but then I decided on to animation design is interesting. I want to go ahead with that. So yeah, throughout 11th, that's all I did. And then from 12th, I was with Designex. So then I prepared with that only.
Interesting. So animation. Yeah, I remember mentioning, I think, initial sessions when I was having a conversation with your mom and you, I think, I can recall that you mentioned animation and some other fields also, I think.
I don't remember that anymore.
Right. Okay. All right. So now that you have decided, okay, design करना है and animation थोड़ा सा समझ आया कि हाँ इसमें जाना है. But there are multiple exams. UCEED है, NID है और NIFT है. तो कैसे decide किया कि हाँ UCEED करना है?
Starting में UCEED was definitely not the main priority. NID is the main priority, because that's mainly because I didn't know much about UCEED. Yeah. It was my mother who told me about it, and in the starting I was completely just nahi karna ye, because she introduced me as ki IIT जो हैं, they conduct this exam, and I was completely under the impression that UCEED will be more about engineering than about design. So I was like, nahi, I will stick to NIT, UCEED nahi karna. And then it was that was my mentality for a long time, until then the classes, Designex classes started, so I got exposed more to the type of questions, and then I did a few of the papers myself as well, the previous year papers, and I realized that UCEED exams are a lot more interesting. I find them a lot more interesting. All the questions that come, I enjoyed.
UCEED is more interesting. Okay. Wow. This is going to be, this is going to divide the audience. ऐसे एकदम.
I had a lot more fun with UCEED. I've said that before as well, that in this year's paper as well, I enjoyed it a lot more than giving the NID paper. I was very anxious throughout the NID paper, kaise hoga, but then UCEED mein I was like, nahi, aaram se ho jayega mere se. I was much more confident in this.
Right. I think that's where the natural inclination comes into play, because we are wired differently. Everybody's inclination is different, and their approach to design is different. Their approach to, the kind of design that they want to do is different. So for you, it was natural that UCEED ka paper was like, it's coming out naturally. You're enjoying it more than you did NID. So that makes sense, total sense. For me, it was, of course, it was not UCEED. For me, it was Ceed, and I did not enjoy it. So I enjoyed NID a lot, but Ceed was not something that I enjoyed.
Ceed ज़्यादा higher level का भी होता है. Even though I did do a lot of the Ceed questions, and they were more like ज़्यादा सर दर्द देते थे compared to the UCEED ones.
Of course, if you're going for bachelor's and you're trying to solve the master's wala question,
exactly, yeah. So
yeah. So cool. Now that you have actually managed to clear the exam, or let's say top the exam, right? So how did you start the preparation? Like you mentioned that classes started when you joined us. You had weekend classes thi, but just take us through the journey a little. कि कैसे किया?
So for part A, I didn't do a lot of stuff in the starting. I just attended the classes and did the assignments on the portal. There were a bunch of them. I think by the time July, August came by, I had done a lot of those assignments, and that's when I started doing the previous year papers.
Yeah.
And I whenever I had free time, I didn't have a lot of, because of all the exams coming, the school exams. But whenever I did, I would do one of the papers. And by the time December came by, I had done all the UCEED ones just once, and just one or two Ceed ones as well. And then I re-attempted them in there was a 3-week window, I think, between NID and UCEED. And during those 3 weeks, I reattempted all the UCEED papers and all the Ceed ones 2015 onwards.
Right.
And then all the ones all the questions that I didn't get, even in that attempt, then I circled them and I revised them later on just before the exam. That is just how I tackled part A. There was no very dramatic thing. I just did the previous year papers.
Okay.
And with drawing, it was again a long process. So I started just practicing the compositions a lot more in July, August only. And I think I really rigorously did my drawing for the first few months, and then later on, sab touch hood gaya. I just did like 1 or 2 compositions a week, or
I remember that.
even less than that.
I remember that.
So then once my first term boards were over and NIT ke liye prepare karna tha, that's when I picked it back again, and I was very bad at it in the starting, but then धीरे धीरे वापस हो गया. And NIT के paper की वजह से I was able to just get back the drawing wala part. If I hadn't given that, then I don't know कैसे जाता UCEED का. I didn't have a lot of time. इतनी सारी चीजें हो रही थी.
Yeah.
So that is how I did part B.
Okay. So for part A, you totally, I'm just trying to sum it up. Totally concentrated on previous year papers and the assignments and etc. And then for part B, it was more of compositions and trying to.
Just a lot of practice.
Yeah. So practice maybe क्या practice किया था?
Compositions banana, and also separately human figures. So you had said ki live sketching karna. I didn't have time. Not the time. I just didn't have a lot of places to do live sketching because ek to COVID chal raha tha, and I live in a very small society, and because of COVID, not a lot of people would come out often. Even if I went in during the evening, I would hardly see like a few kids. So there was not a lot of places to do live sketching. So what I would do, I would just think up of a scenario, say 2-3 साल पहले कभी मॉल गए थे, तो जो भी जितना भी याद आ रहा है, I would just think up of that, make a thumbnail and then draw जितना बना सकती हूँ. That is how I used to make the compositions. And of course, I would get a few questions from the internet, but then internet पे ज़्यादा होता नहीं है composition related questions. जितने मिल रहे थे सब उठाकर बस बना लिए. Sometimes I search up like a random scene generator, and उसमें कोई location देते थे, and then I drew. I didn't do that for a long time because they gave very dramatic locations and I had no idea. So then I did a few from that as well. Yes, that's just how I practiced. It was quite difficult finding stuff to draw about. That was one of the things I struggled with.
Right.
But then I was able to do it eventually.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, you were not supposed to go out. You were supposed to stay in and then you would draw. Yeah. So drawing from memory was something that it's a difficult thing because that's the hardest part. You need to nail the proportions, compositions, the perspective and everything. So
human figures was something I really struggled with for a long time, and that it took a long time to perfect that as well. It's still not perfect, but it's better, a lot better than it was earlier. What I used to do was I was pretty good at taking up a reference picture and just copying it down because I used to do a lot of painting, and so उसमें आदत हो गई थी just जो दिख रहा है वो बनाने का. So I used to just search up on Pinterest like whatever dancers, because they have a lot of dynamic posters. I would search up dancers or athletes or something like that, and I would just copy down the basic line work of that just to get used to the human figures, and so that I know how exactly, like the arm movements, all that stuff. I didn't focus on muscles or clothing or anything. First I focused on the figure itself, and then after that was done, then I used to focus more on whatever shading would occur and the clothing, the wrinkles and that. It took a long time to do this.
It's a long process
in just like a few months. So yes.
Whenever we used to, at the end of the week, whenever we used to evaluate the assignments, the submissions, we used to see that certain times there was a peak in the the quality of the work. Then sometimes there was a drastic dip also, because of course, like there are other things to manage, and there's school, there's exams, but ups and downs were there. So how did you manage that?
I don't know. I think the human expressions was another thing I was really bad at. Like I actively avoided making them. I would try to like make a human figure turned the other way around just so I didn't have to make the face. And it took me a long time. I think it was quite later on when I finally sat down कि अच्छा ये अब कैसी तरह तो इसको करना है. And so what I did was I searched up random like any scene in which a lot of crowd would be showing, and then I would make itte chote chote just portraits of them so that I can make that small face and the small expression. I think I filled like 2-3 pages just itte chote chote logo. So that helped me overcome that. So that is just how I tackled every single thing. जिसमें problem थी उसी पे focus करो काफी time तक until I become more confident in it. And yeah, then I was able to get better at it धीरे धीरे.
So how did you like manage the school and your preparation? Like
school that. And preparation, it was pretty difficult. I think I was not focusing much on school for a large part because online school tha, and because I didn't want to do anything related to the studies. So starting I didn't focus at all. But then जब exams आने लगे, then I took a break from design preparation and then I did the exams. So I didn't do a lot of stuff together. It was pretty difficult, as it is for most people.
Right.
I guess I was lucky in the way it aligned that my exams were over just before the exam, the design exams came. So nothing was overlapping. I feel like agar COVID nahi hota, then it would have definitely overlapped. I don't know how I would have done then. So these circumstances helped a lot.
Right. No, I think even focusing on design entrance exams and having that focus is also, the clarity is also a big asset, when you're preparing for design entrance exams. So that certainly did work out in your favor for sure. And when you started your preparation along with Designex and what we were teaching, and initially what we get from students is that the first few weeks are difficult because we try to introduce the design as it is, not as something that is, हाँ ये design है, इसको याद कर लेना, ये ऐसा होता है. You were getting introduced to design, like the fundamentals of design in the initial weeks. It's a little frustrating in the beginning.
It was.
Yes, right? Because like you're changing how to think. You're trying to, consciously make those efforts to think a certain way, to look at things a certain way, to observe differently. So all of those things, like especially my exercises, if you look at it, they were compounding every week. So they were, adding up every week. So how was that? How was, your experience? I want to know about it. So, it'll be a good thing for us also.
It would definitely depend on my mood. So some weeks I would be very like hyped up that yes, मैं अच्छे से करूँगी this week, and those weeks I would be able to think up of different stuff, the exercises that we did. Some of them really required a lot of thinking, and sometimes I was able to, but then sometimes I was feeling so down I would not participate at all. I would hardly do anything. So yes, it was difficult. But yeah, I just did it. I don't know exactly how.
I think you're being too modest here, or you're being shy to even mention it, I think. So one particular thing that I would want to mention, because I've been teaching you for a long time now. I think one particular aspect that from your preparation from you was that you were more consistent also, even though you did not participate in the exercises. You were still there in the class.
Yeah.
You were still there in the class. So that also makes a lot of difference. So you were there constantly absorbing what we were teaching. And that also plays a different, definitely a very crucial role. And it also tells about your interest that you didn't do the exam.
Part of it is because I am very not very confident. So because I had a few good experiences in the beginning classes, then I was actually looking forward to more classes. I feel like if it would have gotten a bit differently, like if I would have made a lot of mistakes or something, I would have dreaded attending the classes in
Yeah.
That plays an important role as to why I was so consistent.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think we started with, I definitely started with doodling. That was the first session I start with. So I think that is the most easy to grasp, and definitely don't start with how to approach and all of those things. Yeah. Yeah. But overall, throughout this design preparation, whether it be on your part or, you were with either I was teaching or Ashish sir was teaching, and there was another faculty from arts background who was teaching. So from all of this, combining all of these experiences and throughout this journey, I want you to highlight major mistakes that you've made or something that you realized, okay, yaar, ye aisa nahi karna tha. Like, I've been doing this wrong all the time. I shouldn't have done that. Let me tell you my mistakes, okay? Maybe that will help you. One, I thought my sketching was not good. Okay, that was a mistake. Honestly, that was a mistake because I'm not really good at making perfect human proportions, perfect human facial expressions or features. No, I'm good at making super rough, super fluid postures, and that without any facial expressions, they convey emotions. That's my style of drawing. I thought that was a mistake. That was not good enough. So because in the entrance exam in NID, when I went for the studio test, they put you under so much pressure that your natural way of thinking and natural way of drawing comes out. So at some point I was just, going crazy with the pencil. Like, okay, like how I used to draw normally, rough lines, rough things, rough postures. I was doing that. And I made it. That was a major mistake. And which I took it to the exam. Okay. I did not know until I cleared the exam. I took it to the exam. So that was a major mistake. So aisa kuch tha?
Yeah, I guess something along those lines. I wouldn't say I was very good at drawing, definitely not, but I was like undermining myself. I was not confident enough. So I was even scared to just start the composition, because I was like, I will make some sort of mistake and then sab kharab ho jayega. That is something that I learned in the process with Shashank sir, the whole workshop that he conducted. With that, I was able to realize that it's not that difficult to just think up of something and put it on paper. So confidence was my problem. Is case mein. And I don't know if this is like a mistake, but this is something that I definitely learned. Is my approach towards the part A questions was pretty like mathematical, mechanical kind of, not very creative, because in a lot of the UCEED questions, you have to think in some sort of different creative way to be able to grasp, this is how I'm supposed to approach the question. And I didn't do that. I didn't even know that you could do that in this sort of exam. And I learned that slowly. So I guess that's a mistake. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that you changed over the course of time. So that's something there, yeah, for sure. And something, any, let's say, any habits that you've built during the course of your preparation that has helped?
Making thumbnails, definitely. I thought of this before. Both you and Shashank sir have really said that thumbnails banana bahut important hai. And I heard you, I understood you, but I was like, nahi, kya point hai, chodo. And then slowly I realized, no, it is very important. It is very helpful. And then, I slowly just incorporated it into my whole process of making compositions.
Right.
So that really, really helped. And that was something that I did not used to do before at all. That was definitely a mistake.
No, definitely. So let me just explain a little about thumbnails to the audience here, what the context we're talking about. So thumbnails are basically sketches that we draw, small, the size of your thumbnail. Really small sketches before you actually draw the final version of your composition or your design or your product sketch or whatever. So you just plan the sketch beforehand. You draw, let's say, 2 thumbnails or 3 thumbnails in just, matter of few seconds. So I used to push you guys to draw what, 15, 20 thumbnails in a matter of what, 2 minutes, 3 minutes?
I still didn't do that actually. I still just made one.
Yeah.
I did during practice like 2 or 3, but in the UCEED paper I just blanked. I was like, it'll take too much time, so I made one. That was one thing that I regret, because I feel like I could have chosen a much more better composition. I just made it in 1 point. That's why the marks I got weren't very good. It was like 35 out of 60. So that's because I blanked out and I was like, "Acha, jo dimag mein sabse pehle aa raha hai," I just made that. And they were still good enough marks, but I could have done better if I thought of different compositions, of course.
No, of course, you're way better than drawing 1 point perspective. So that for sure, I know that. So yeah, so that's what exactly the thumbnails are for. Cutting down the time you would spend in thinking, and once you put it down on the paper in a small size, it doesn't take much time to just scribble that small frame. So you have all those ideas in front of you, and then you can choose, mix and match, and do whatever you want with those things. So I think I was a little hard on students, on you guys, that you need to make those things. And Shashank was a little generous, I would say, in terms of number of sketches and thumbnails. Yeah, I remember that. So yeah, cool. And anything else other than thumbnails that you've built up, a habit, let's say, you used to, let's say, like I used to observe a lot of problems in my surroundings that I can solve. That was one thing that I did when I was preparing. So any particular habit that you've built, incorporated into your preparation?
Well, it's not that dramatic, I guess, as yours is.
No, don't worry about, making it dramatic. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Just tell me what you did. That's it.
Again, it's very small. I started, I in the beginning, I didn't even make frames for the composition. Like I would just make it on the entire page. And that was one of the reasons I was having so much difficulty with the composition. So then I started making the choti frames, side mein thumbnails, all that stuff. And another thing would be that, the gesture drawing that Shashank sir taught a lot. So while starting out to make the human figures, I was first make the gesture and then detail it out on top of that. So that was something that I acquired on my way. I acquired my entire composition making process just
No, that is how it is supposed to be, and I think that's a very good learning curve also. What you ended up with is quite commendable by the end of it. So really glad and really happy to know that because we did not have this conversation even after classes were over, because exams and everything. But now that it's a very good feeling, and also very a satisfaction for us, because that the way we're teaching is actually coming out, and it's helping students to get through these exams. So that's nice. And if I have to say that, Manya, you have your younger sister जो अभी UCEED देगी, तो उसको क्या बोलोगे?
I would say कि believe in yourself, definitely. Don't freak out before the exam. Like जितनी practice की है, it is more than enough. You're aware of what the exam is, you know how to solve it, and just having a calm attitude before the exam is very important. And that is one place that I'm really glad I was able to maintain that entire attitude. So like throughout the exam, I was not freaking out about anything. So yes, that is what I would tell.
How did you do that? If you were not freaking out during the exam, how did you do that?
I don't know.
You don't know?
As I said, I believed in myself. I have done a lot of preparation for this. I had thought this through a lot of times, and I was just able to. I had okay, this is sort of embarrassing to admit, but I felt like I was better than a lot of people there. I would not like to say this to everybody.
No, this is fine. This is fine because yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine.
Even because I had that mentality, I felt like I was able to be a lot more calm throughout the whole thing. I was not freaking out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is.
No, that's cool because see, mentally you're equipping yourself. That's how I think that was a way of coping up with the stress, right? Yeah. Now I'm so nostalgic. I'm recollecting all the discussions we've had about, keeping you calm. Yeah. Yeah. Anything from the preparation perspective you would tell? Any tips that you would want to just give out?
From the preparation perspective, I guess it would be the strategies that you should definitely follow. That is, once you have practiced a lot of these papers, figure out which section is the most difficult for you. So I guess for me and for a lot of people, it's NAT that is the most difficult. And it also takes a lot of time. You don't feel like leaving any question because negative marking nahi hai. So when I used to practice, if I did like NAT, MSQ, MCQ, then I would most of the time get like overtime, time mein nahi khatam kar pati thi. I already decided that I'll do NAT in the complete end, and I had entire like timestamps planned, I guess. So MCQ I had decided I'll do in like 45 minutes to 1 hour, and then MSQ the next half an hour, and then NAT I gave an entire hour for it, and it worked out pretty well. I think I completed it like just 5 minutes before the exam, like before the 2.5 hours got over. And another thing would be just for each question, decide that is it worth the time you're going to spend on it. Because like there were a few questions that were so difficult, not so difficult. I feel like I would have been able to solve it if I was sitting at home and I had ample amount of time. But itne complicated the. I remember reading a question and I finished reading it and I immediately went to the next one. I won't be able to solve this in the time I have right now. And then of course there were few that I just had no idea how to solve. So definitely don't do the questions that you don't know about because negative marking is there. I think in the end I left like 7 questions, which is quite good, of course, but yes. So don't feel bad if you're leaving questions. And this year there was partial marking in MSQ, so that was something that I took full advantage of. So I made sure to leave like minimum questions in MSQ. I still left 2 because they were complicated, but I made sure to just mark the options that I'm completely sure about, and if I have a doubt in some other option, to not mark it. So in the end, it worked pretty well. I did not have a single question wrong in MSQ. So there was no negative marking that got into play. There were 4 questions in which I had like an incomplete answer, but at least there was no marks cut.
Yeah,
that worked out really well. That was something that everybody should take full advantage of. They have given quite a nice partial marking is pretty nice.
Yeah.
So yes, those would be the tips. And for drawing consistency, that is what worked for me.
Yeah.
To be consistent in your drawings, काफी पहले से start कर दो. And yes, consistency.
Cool. One important question. So let me paint a picture for you now. You're in the exam hall and you were, sitting at the table and you have the question paper in front of you. You're reading that question, which is super complicated, right? And then at some point you think, oh, ये तो आता ही नहीं मुझे. ये तो समझ ही नहीं आ रहा मुझे. Like, what is this? There's pressure building up in your mind that time, right? So there is something from the inside that's telling you shouldn't leave it. You should spend some time on this, And then there's another person inside you telling you that, okay, no, I think you should skip it and come back to it later on. So when eventually you skipped, right? You went to the next question. So when you go to the next question, you still have that thing in your mind that, okay, you left a question. That is still there. So how did you deal with that?
So this wasn't like a new experience during the exam. Of course, it happened. There were few questions that I didn't know about, but while I was preparing earlier on, even in those papers, there were questions that I had no idea what to do. And I had made that mistake before, that I didn't feel like, because I was preparing, abhi to main exam nahi hai, so there were a lot of times where I would do the entire paper and not want to leave any of them. And in that process, I realized that I would take sometimes I would take 1 hour extra than what I should have taken. And so I had already told myself कि गलती से भी ये मत सोचना कि सारे करने important है. मैंने पूरा I remember just freaking out and pacing my room for an hour straight, just thinking ki ye nahi karna, ye karna, ye karna, kind of. So I had already prepared myself for all of this, and it was mainly because I had made all the mistakes beforehand while practicing the papers. So that is why I did not do that during the exam.
That's an important point. Like you made all the mistakes, so that shows how much you've practiced, right? Over and over again, how many papers you solved and the exercises that you've done, right? So that's a very good takeaway, guys, from whoever, like all the listeners, because practice is important. It's if you don't do that, then you're bound to make those mistakes for the first time in the exam, and it's difficult to deal with that. It builds up a crazy amount of pressure, and you'll freak out. Yeah. And now, from moving from here, you'll be going to IIT Bombay. Super exciting. First time you'll be leaving home. है ना? डर लग रहा है कैसा? Like, how are you excited for it? Or
I am excited, but also scared. Yes.
So from here, what do you want to do when you become a designer, or what do you want to? How does it feel like? Tell me about that.
I've not thought that far ahead. I do have like stuff in mind of what I could do maybe. So I've said that I'm interested in animation, right? Now I don't know till what extent they will teach in the next 4 years, and it will all depend on whatever I'm taught. I am interested in 3D animation. I feel like I might want to explore that. I don't know everything. So baad mein pata chalega.
Right.
But I'll get like a master's degree. Maybe I'll study more, or maybe I'll get an internship. It all depends on how I'm feeling 4 years from now.
Yeah. I mean, you're just barely scratching.
Exactly.
You're not even scratching the surface.
It's too early for me to think that far.
Right. Super exciting stuff, I'm sure, because you're going for bachelor's. That's the beauty of it. You're not going for master's. You're going for bachelor's, and it's going to be super exciting for you. I know that for sure. So now I think I want to end this podcast with just one thing with this session here. Being consistent and being at it no matter what, and consistently incorporating the feedback. These are the three things that I noticed in the conversations that we've had over the time, that you've done very well. And also, apart from that, you've also practiced quite a lot from your end also. We used to push, yes, but then that thing from that interest from your side, that was there. So thank you for joining me here on the podcast today, Manya, and thank you for sharing your experience. I'm really glad. I'm pretty sure that this is going to be super helpful for all the students who are going to look up to you and listen to this podcast.